A job is meant for working hard, but not for resting. That's what the protagonist was thinking. The others had already turned their attention to their colleague Weng. The colleague wonders if he worked yesterday. And also, there are already cries that the guy's pulse is not palpable and it is necessary to call an ambulance. And here's Weng himself. He fell down while getting to his workplace with a cup of coffee. After 10 years of hard study, Weng got a college degree and worked for 2 years. The average overtime work exceeded 4 hours daily, working without a day off for 3 months. In his 20s, the guy's health was like that of a 70-year-old. Even he himself admits that his life was no better than that of a mere dog. While his colleagues tried to shout to the guy, he had already closed his eyes and fell into some strange dream, filled with strange and unrelated things, as well as where everything is depicted in green color scheme. When he came to his senses, he felt a sharp pain. He didn't realize what had just happened, whether he was dead or not. It all reminded him of some kind of dream. But it wasn't a dream. He opened his eyes a little and noticed blood on his hand. What he saw around him didn't make him very happy. There were some strange and frightening creatures and monsters around. All the buildings were battered, as if the hands, paws, or tentacles of these monsters had collapsed on them. One could also spot some sort of monster extermination team that was in the thick of things. To say that this surprised the guy is not to say anything. He was incredibly shocked. He didn't realize what had happened, and if he had traveled through time and something like that. Looking at the reflection on the axe he had in his hands, he saw that instead of a human head, he had a dog's head. And what was that stupid face looking back at him in the reflection? He grabbed his cheeks and began to pull them away, still staring at his reflection. All he could think was that this wasn't all just some stupid dream, and this strange creature was him with the head of a dog. After dying of overwork, he had turned into a werewolf with a dog's head. What the hell is that? Sure, he said his life was no better than a dog's, but that didn't mean he wanted to be a dog at all. Meanwhile, a huge monster that looked a bit like a monster-like flower let out a growl. This sent shivers down the spine of the average office worker. Suddenly, he noticed in the reflection that he seemed to have turned into a human again, and he didn't understand why it happened, because just now he had a dog's head instead of a human head. At the same moment, the monsters came too close and he was already within range of their attacks. Now it was no longer a question of whether he was a human or a dog. His priority was survival, and life could be about to end. The humans from the monster extermination team, meanwhile, are escaping. The monster level exceeds level 3, so they need help. Someone asks the commander to call for help, and someone is asking about whether they should retreat. At the same time, the man heard a voice saying that the infected should not retreat. Weng doesn't understand where the strange voice is coming from. He hears that he must do his best not to let the monster escape from the third block, that he must destroy all of them at any cost. The infected have no right to retreat, and all those who violate the order will be executed on the spot. Finally, the guy notices where the noise was coming from. It turned out to be a collar. It was a revelation to him. He's wearing a collar, and what kind of attitude they have towards humans. So they're infected. The monster tossed aside the people who tried to stop it. The guy taking cover behind the wreckage of a building notes that the monster looks cool. He is even annoyed that they are shouting to do at any cost, but the commander himself is not here. So all he can do is give orders through his collar. Reminding himself that he is not of this world, he decides not to participate in all of this. Then sadly notes that he died before this transformation after all. He then makes an attempt to lie on the ground and just pretend to be dead. Perhaps this is what will allow him to leave unnoticed as soon as the opportunity arises. In the meantime, the collar still gives out loud commands for the infected to kill the monsters at any cost. Noticing that no one is paying attention to him, he decides that now would be a good time to escape. However, he got tired of crawling pretty quickly, and he hadn't eaten since last night. He wanted to drink tea and milk. As the commands continued to sound and the infected continued to die, the guy was just thinking about whether there was tea and milk in this world, whether there was crawfish in this world, whether there was fried chicken, and so on. The commands kept going on and on. The boy thought of chocolate, and then immediately remembered that chocolate was not to be eaten by dogs, for they would die. He wondered what would happen to him after eating chocolate, considering he had a dog's head. Slowly but surely he crawled to one of the buildings, then threw on his cap and decided to look around inside. An exit was already looming on the horizon. He was so excited at what he saw. However, the monster struck with its tentacles right in front of him, and the guy was protected by the girl, covering him with herself. The poor girl was thrown quite far away from this blow. The monster roared and prepared to attack the girl again. The guy pulled his cap over his eyes and decided that it was none of his business. The monster was already hovering over the girl and had his tentacles. Closing her eyes, the pink-haired girl is indignant that the monster is ugly and hurts her, and in general, how he caught her. However, when she opens her eyes, she notices that she was attacked, not by a monster with tentacles, but that someone did not save her and is carrying her in his arms. The guy's head, meanwhile, has started to turn into a dog's head again. He is directly enveloped in energy. He even tries to justify that he saved the girl and intervened just this once, and that's it. Wang doesn't even realize himself why he even intervened in the first place. The girl is surprised by the fact that he came after her and saved her. She even repeats it twice. She then also starts stroking the dog's head, stating that he is the same dog. She didn't realize it would be so much fun. The guy is so pleased with the head stroking. To get out of it all, he asks her to stop, especially since she's still in great danger. The protagonist wishes he could come up with a plan for them to escape. The pink-haired girl, pointing to the collar, reminds him that they will be torn apart if they leave the area. The girl even thought that the guy decided to die with her. Hearing this, the guy immediately stops. Now he understands everything. He said something about some human rights, and here it is like this. It's not surprising to him that the infected didn't rush to escape even when the danger was maximum. He wonders if he'll be able to escape with his head still in place. This world seemed to be too unfriendly to newcomers. Since they stopped, the monsters caught up with them rather quickly. Wang wonders why there are more and more monsters and why they are all coming towards them. The girl, on the other hand, shows with all her looks that she is not a damsel in distress. The answers to the guy's questions are not surprising to her because she is a monster hunter. Having said that, they dodge the monster's attacks. The guy decides that he has no other choice. Now all he has to do is fight. He even assumes that after his rebirth, he must have been given some extraordinary abilities. But contrary to what he says, one of the monsters destroys him with a tentacle, and Wang thinks about what a weakling he is. A pink-haired girl stands up for him, and with a single kick of her foot, she blows apart one of the monster's tentacles and orders him not to touch the dog. The girl asks if the dog is okay, and also tells him that even if the monsters are torn to pieces, they can still regenerate. The guy is surprised that they can regenerate so quickly and easily. The girl, on the other hand, informs him that she will just kill all the monsters, but the dog doesn't understand how the girl will do that if the monsters regenerate. He wonders if the girl has some sort of plan. The girl rips off her belt, then shoves some kind of thing in it, and suddenly it all turns into a huge-sized scythe. The girl even screams that now the monster will definitely die. Taking this huge scythe with ease, she jumps on this monster with tentacles, calling it a freak. The guy looking at all this was a little surprised. It turns out the girl did not need his rescue at all, and he was making a hero of himself. Meanwhile, the pink-haired girl is chopping up the monster. She needs to find the core to tear the monster to pieces. Dog thinks about what you've heard, so these monsters have a heart of sorts, and it's a core. If you destroy the core, you can kill it. Suddenly, he starts to smell and feels like he has an ability. His sense of smell is greatly enhanced. Every object around him has a unique odor. These monsters smell of blood and rot. There's also the smell of burning, and it's everywhere here. There's also a pleasant odor. It's that girl with the scythe. At this point, he takes a whiff and seems to find what he was looking for. He yells to the girl to listen to him, and that the core is right there. The girl doesn't seem to hear him. Apparently she's too engrossed, as if she's lost her mind. He takes something like a spear and stabs the monster, hoping his plan will work. The pink-haired girl stops and notices that something in the monster's behavior has changed. The dog's surprise is less. It turns out that his theory worked. However, the monster suddenly braids the guy along his arms and legs with its tentacles. This was definitely not something the guy had counted on. He started panting tremendously, once again feeling that his life was about to be cut short for the second time. So that was the end of his day-long journey to another world. However, suddenly he is called an idiot. These words burst out of a huge flaming mouth. The guy is surprised by this turn of events. It turns out he is still not dead, but is inside his subconscious. In his subconscious is a huge throne room, in the center of which sits someone resembling his current one, a chained werewolf. All around the subconscious in this hall are chains, as if a deterrent to this madness. Looking at this monster, Wang assumes that this beast is the original consciousness of this body he is currently in. There were some statues of people he didn't know everywhere. He wondered what these statues were. But then this big guy in chains spoke up and called someone a mean breed. Wang said hello to him. However, all of this really scared him and left him puzzled, as he didn't realize whether the prisoner in chains was talking to him or not. Besides, the prisoner did not look weak. The captive, on the other hand, was only throwing out scraps of words about how unforgivable it was and that he should kill them all. His gaze became incredibly wild, and he uttered that everyone should die. Wang was greatly frightened by such a thing, and then his body felt as if it was pierced with energy, and that energy filled his body. Suddenly, Wang's consciousness came to his senses, and he lightning quickly broke the monster's tentacle bindings that were restraining him. Even the pink-haired girl paid attention, though she was busy with her fight. The guy, who had become more like a large dog or wolf, easily grabbed the core or heart of the monster that had almost killed him a while ago. Then he squeezed the heart with his huge paw, and the remnants scattered in different directions. The monster let out a deafening roar, and then died. And do you think that the guy will become the same by the results of his journey as that monster which sits chained in his subconscious? And by the way, remember that work is not everything in your life, so take care of your health. The entire body of the monster that looked like a flower shrank. The pink-haired girl kept looking at the monster, trying to understand what had happened. The team responsible for destroying the monster was also a little puzzled. They were happy that the flower monster was dead, but they didn't really understand how it happened. Meanwhile, the dog's head began to fade away. A moment later, Wang regained his human head. Suddenly, some powerful energy materialized in his hand. This mysterious energy flew off the guy's hand and plunged into his chest. At the same moment, it was as if he was inside himself, and the monster flower reappeared right in front of him. Wang realized that he was most likely in his subconscious. The only thing he didn't understand was why the monster had reappeared in front of him. However, the guy must have forgotten that he was not alone in his subconscious mind, and his inner monster was not slumbering either. The monster flower shook as the giant dog appeared in front of him, ready to tear him apart. And so it does. The giant dog mauled the flower monster in one sitting and ate it, leaving the flower monster no chance. Wang was scared as hell. An ordinary working guy would definitely never dream of seeing such a thing. After eating, the giant beast only picked its claws in its teeth. The monster complained that it was too little and wanted more food. At the same moment, Wang heard the pink-haired girl call out to him, and he suddenly came to his senses, coming out of his subconsciousness. The girl is happy that they won. She wonders if the dog got the monster core. This strange world is too dangerous for the guy, so he decides he's going to keep his head down until he's finally dealt with everything. Wang reports that he found nothing, and that perhaps one of the girl's attacks destroyed the core. He even praises the girl, stating that she was great. To Wang's surprise, the girl is incredibly proud after saying this, as she is a monster hunter and she will slay them all. The men who had been sent to their deaths also began to discuss the girl. One of them noticed how she fought. He thinks the girl is really crazy. Another man tells of a rumor that has been going around about the girl. That one day, the pink-haired girl will go crazy and start destroying the world. No one still didn't understand what they should do next, as the monster had finally been defeated. Suddenly, people in full uniforms appeared, their faces also covered. Wang wonders to the girl who these people are. One of the arrivals turns to the captain. He confirms the death of the ghost-level monster YC-9523 in the third block. In response, the captain orders him to organize troops to clear the battlefield, remove the monster's organs, and avoid the spread of infection. A subordinate then tells all those in charge to get to work immediately. Wang and the rest of the infected are put into a car to take them to the base. After a while, they had already reached the base, which was near the sea. It was Xiangyu, a heavily guarded area, which was not surprising considering the type of infected being held there. Wang looked around, trying to get a good look at the place they had gotten into. There were guards, nurses, and the rest of the infected around. This was the very place where the infected are kept. Satisfied with herself, the pink-haired girl walked up to Wang and put her hand on his shoulder. The other infected were surprised. They wondered if Leia had been switched, and if this was the unapproachable demon Leia they knew. The men were surprised because normally the girl doesn't get close to anyone. This made them develop an interest in Wang. Leia immediately cooled their ardor and yelled at them that she heard everything and how they talked about her. She even threatened to kill them. The men were scared out of their wits at such a statement. The guard also reacted and yelled at Leia to calm down. He ordered all personnel to immediately line up for inspection. This reprimand really displeased Leia, as she was powerless here. She walked up to the guy who was telling gossip about her and kicked him angrily. At the same time, she smiled happily at Aweng and told him that she would find him later. Aweng was surprised by this behavior of his new acquaintance and did not yet know whether this boded trouble or good for him. Aweng comes to the inference that if there is a check in this place, then they may not be the only ones who are sick. And it turns out that this place is not only a hospital, but also a prison. Aweng was bothered by only one thought. He hoped that all the infected could turn into dogs, and he wasn't the only one. The guard ordered everyone to gather immediately, as each person had to be examined by a doctor. He also ordered everyone to shut up. One of the infected took umbrage at YC9523, getting the wrong grade in the last battle. Another man is surprised by this fact. A third man asks them to shut up as they might be overheard. One of the men points to Aweng and informs the others that a real disaster was avoided thanks to Aweng. The other man was surprised. He didn't believe that Aweng was able to deal with the monster with one punch. He would rather believe that Leia had dealt with the monster. The infected who were in this sortie don't really care about the point. The main thing is that for passing this level, they are rewarded, and quite a good one. Aweng realized it right away. Almost all of the infected are just a group of idiots who are not much different from typical prisoners. They try to get ahead, and whoever is in charge sends them to more and more hell. Aweng has learned this lesson in his past life. Aweng is sure that if the others find out what is inside him, they will kill him immediately. Aweng realizes that his only chance for salvation is to escape. In order to make a successful escape from this place, he must behave with restraint. He decides to be more modest in order to gain his freedom. However, his plans are immediately ruined. The blonde stood up and informed everyone that the monster YC9523 was not killed by Leia, but by Aweng. All of the infected's gazes turned towards Aweng, who had only decided to sit quietly and unnoticed. However, almost immediately, the infected all burst out laughing, because according to them, there was no way Aweng could have defeated that monster. Blondie agrees with them that it may sound unbelievable, but it's true. He tells them that the dog successfully found the core thanks to his sense of smell, which is 20 times stronger than that of an ordinary human. Blondie confirms that he saw the whole thing. Blondie was just about to tell the others what the dog had screamed when he was immediately shut his mouth, not allowing him to say anything else. Aweng grabbed the blonde by the scruff of his neck and dragged him around the corner. Aweng good-naturedly motioned for the others to continue their conversation. Aweng yelled at the blonde man. Aweng didn't understand who the blonde man was at all and why the blonde man started to advertise him like that in front of others. Aweng also wondered how the blonde knew that Aweng was the one who killed the monster. The blonde man, with a confused look, informs him that his name is Xu Jie and he is actually Aweng's roommate. Aweng is a little confused because he doesn't remember this. He just got into this body. Xu Jie knows that Aweng can't defeat such a monster, but he thinks that the other infected are fools and will believe such nonsense. Aweng is glad that the blonde man realizes that Aweng couldn't defeat that monster. Xu Jie told this story so that something like this would be a motivation for the other infected to try harder on missions. Aweng apologizes with a goofy look and says that he just forgot all about it. Aweng puts it down to the fact that he bumped his head during the fight. Meanwhile, a nurse comes over and starts calling out the number 7763 and asking where he is. The nurse called Aweng, the number 7763, and the name Jiang Weng. It seems in this world he has the name Jiang Weng, since the guy immediately responds to this name. He informs Xu Jie that he is going for a checkup and that they will talk later. Xu Jie is not that simple. He is definitely not a fool, so he immediately notices that Jiang Weng has changed somehow. He even makes a crazy suggestion that maybe Jiang Wen isn't who he says he is and has been switched with someone else today. The infected's health check was unbearably hard. Jiang Weng even felt like he was being called a monster, an infected, a monster, and that he was wished to die. However, an incredibly beautiful nurse soon appeared, who lovingly wanted to examine Jiang Weng and asked him not to be afraid. The guy who couldn't move anymore was unable to resist such a nurse. His nose was even bleeding. The nurse took out a huge syringe and was about to inject Jiang Weng, the guy, as much as he could from this procedure, although his red face proved that he did not mind to do it, and rather even in favor of this initiative. He was so willing to trust the nurse that his feelings for her became incredibly inflamed, and his head once again turned into a dog's head from pleasure. In the same instant he awoke. All of this was just his nightmare. Too much had come over him on his first day in his new-to-him world. He was glad that at least there was a nurse. When Jiang Weng turned his head to the left, he noticed Leia sitting in front of his bed. Jiang Weng was greatly surprised by this sudden turn. He actually cried out. He didn't understand how the girl got into his room. Leia asked the guy to be quiet as she had secretly sneaked into his room. Wiping his eyes, Jiang Weng wondered what the girl forgot in his room, and even in the middle of the night, Leia thought the guy was having such a funny sleep, which is why she decided to watch him. Leia reminds the guy that it is customary to pay for salvation. Since Jiang Weng saved her today, Leia wants to pay the guy back. Jiang Weng is surprised. That's how the girl thinks. Then he wonders how Leia is going to repay him. For starters, Leia is going to get under the blanket. Jiang Weng wonders what she is going to do next, but Leia asks the guy to be quiet. Watching all of this is Zhu Jie, who is being kept awake by these two. Shuji realized that Jiang Weng seemed strange and distracted for a reason. Shujai seems to have realized the reason. It's all spring, the time of breeding. The girl is about to embrace Jiang Weng with her arms. Jiang Weng, like a faithful dog, even has his tongue sticking out. He's not wagging his tail like a dog, and that's because he hasn't transformed yet. Leia wrapped her arms around Jiang Weng's neck so tightly that the guy thought that the girl was about to strangle him. At the same moment, the couple notices Shu Ji sitting and glowering. Leia asks Shu Ji why he is still awake. Shujai takes her hint without any unnecessary explanation. Shujai decides to leave the room and asks the couple to have fun, and he will cover for them. Leia even felt like she liked Shujai as well, except that Jiang Weng isn't particularly pleased that his roommate is escaping like this. After all, Leia is completely inept at doing what the guy wants. Jiang Weng even asks Shujai not to leave and help him. Shuji is surprised, for he doesn't understand how he can help. Jiang Weng exclaims that Shujie is just thinking about the wrong thing. Leia doesn't understand, as she has to do a favor for a favor. However, Jiang Weng asks her to drop the idea. Shujie asks them to keep their voices down, as the guards can hear them. Meanwhile, night guards patrol the area. At this moment, another person was heading towards the guards. I wonder what trouble awaits the guy and his friends, and also how he will get out of these problems. The guard first wondered who was in front of him. However, when the man stepped out of the shadows, the guard recognized him immediately. The man introduced himself and said that he was from the task force, from the 3rd squad. The man also showed a piece of paper. It was a license to seize the infected. The man needed 3 infected to accomplish the mission, and he demanded those infected right now. As they walked towards the infected, the guard asked if the man had anyone in particular in mind. Carefully looking over the names of the infected on the 1st floor, the man informed him that he didn't have a specific person for the mission yet, but he had a hunch they were here. After a while, he ordered that the 2nd floor be examined. The guard understood the order. The trio still continued to make noise. Jiang Weng was still asking Leia to leave his room. He even wondered if it could be considered an escape. Leia doesn't think she has anything to be afraid of. Jiang Weng thinks he has something to be afraid of. Shuji is still trying to be invisible. He asks Jiang Weng to ignore him. He can wait in the restroom while Jiang Weng finishes having fun with Leia. The guy tried to chase the girl away with the promise that they would meet up later, but the girl thought the guy was lying to her. The guys finally opened the doors for Leia to leave their room, and just at that moment, the commander and the guard walked past their room. Everyone present didn't expect this turn of events and looked at each other suspiciously. After that, the guys realized that now they would be reprimanded by the guard, sharply closed their door, wishing the 2 men a good night, as if no one had noticed them. The guard, as expected, became furious at this turn of events. He immediately began reprimanding Leia for sneaking out of her cell again. The guard told them to open the cell doors. When the guard opened the door, he wondered who had allowed the infected to hold meetings. The guard even wanted to send everyone present to the lockup. Jiang Weng tried to change his mind. Shujai also said that everything has a price. That's why he suggested to discuss everything personally with the guard. Leia, on the other hand, is not going to hide anything. She calls the guard a jerk because she just got lost on the way to the shower room. Jiang Weng is sure that the guard has a small salary, which angered the guard. While Jiang Weng was begging the guard to be merciful, the man from the task force started looking at the guy carefully. The man immediately informed Jiang Weng that here he was, meeting him. Jiang Weng does not understand anything. However, the guard is angry at Jiang Weng for just standing up. As it turns out, the commander chose Jiang Weng for the mission. The guy doesn't understand what mission we are talking about. Jiang Weng starts faking it, stating how much pain he is in. He reports that the wound he got during yesterday's battle hurt a lot. Even the nurse said that he should rest for at least 10 more days. Everyone present was perplexed by his words. Jiang Weng apologizes and informs them that he cannot take part in the mission. He even reminds the guard that the guard was going to send him to lockup. Shujai tries to shut the guy's mouth and informs him that he was just joking like that. He even asks for just a minute to talk to Jiang Weng. Shujai wonders to the guy what he is doing. After all, he was going to try his best to prove himself. That is why Shujie doesn't understand why Jiang Weng would miss such an opportunity. He also notes that Jiang Weng is not a good actor. Jiang Weng says that Shujie can do what he wants, but he won't fight anymore. Shujie, on the other hand, informs him that the likelihood of there being someone like YC9523 this time is extremely low. Therefore, he believes that the guy has nothing to worry about. If that's not enough words either, then Shujie puts his hand on Jiang Weng's shoulder and tells him that if he cares so much, he will also go along with him this time so that Jiang Weng will feel safe. Shujai thinks that this time they will definitely succeed in gaining recognition and proving their importance. The guard is against this, however, because the commander hasn't said a word about Shujie. Leia is not going to be left out, so she raises both hands and declares that she will also go with the others. The guard tells the girl not to interfere and demands that the girl return to her cell. Shujie, on the other hand, informs Jiang Weng that he will be by his side. The guard here, too, tells them not to decide things on their own. Leia also declares that she doesn't care, and if the dog and the yellow head go, she'll go too. Leia does not understand why she is not allowed to go. The guard, on the other hand, is too noisy with all these infected. The commander can't stand all this talking noise, so he tells everyone to shut their mouths. He says he'll be the only one talking now. He will decide who he will take and who he will not. The commander tells all three to expect him at 6 in the morning and no tardiness, and then leaves. Leia is happy as she goes on the mission along with the dog. She even announces the formation of an invincible team. Shuji is happy as well. Jiang Weng alone is depressed as his life is ruined. The commander is not simple either. He was also happy that Jiang Weng would go with him, even though it turned out to be a bit more complicated than he had planned. In the morning, all three of them met with the commander. The commander informed them that his name was Ling Bo, and that he was in charge of this mission. He also informed them to call him Captain Ling, and since this is the first time they are all working together, Captain Ling reminds them that he is counting on them. Leia is happy. Shujie is also happy, only Jiang Weng alone is still not happy. Ling Bo did not delay since they have already reached the research institute. He points the others to the research institute and informs them that this institute was established 15 years ago to observe monsters. Later, they entered the institute's laboratory. Captain Ling informed that this laboratory is off-limits to ordinary personnel. A few days ago, there was a theft in this lab. A batch of monster organs that were to be used in next week's experiments were stolen. Jiang Weng is upset by the information he heard. After all, since they're monsters, even they're expendable. Shujai reminds his friend not to underestimate the monster organs. He even thinks that his friend still hasn't recovered from his amnesia. Shuji informs him that after battles, they always send the monster organs to this lab for research. He reminds them that although the risk of infection from contact with them is quite high, the monsters are of great research value. The treatments that help the infected avoid worsening their condition happen to be based precisely on monster organ research. Also, another important point is that most of the modifications to the guards' weapons and the infected's weapons as well are also related to the research at this institute. These words make Jiang Weng take a look at the weapons that Leia always carries. Captain Ling, who heard all this, confirms Shuji's words. That's why Captain Ling reminds him that the monster's organs need to be returned. He showed Jiang Weng a crate that contained a particular batch of monster organs and asked the guy to try to find something using his sense of smell. However, upon approaching the crate, Jiang Weng notices that the formalin practically overpowers all other odors, making it impossible to identify them. Xu Jai immediately inquires with the captain about the surveillance cameras installed in the lab. But as it turns out, the surveillance system had been turned off days ago. There were no witnesses, no shoe marks, no fingerprints, and no hair. The thief who broke into the lab left no evidence behind. The captain reports that the work was professional and that they have only a week to solve this theft case. Xu Jai reminds him that there's a slight possibility that there's no genius thief who broke into the lab, and that it could just be some intern's carelessness. Leia agrees with him. However, the captain reported that there was no record of it. Jiang Weng, on the other hand, doesn't want to deal with this theft case at all. He doesn't want to work at all, and is only thinking about how he can make it through just 1 week. While he was unconsciously touching the collar, he suddenly remembered about it. He remembered that he wouldn't be able to do anything with this collar on anyway. However, collar control doesn't work on a mission. In this theft mission, he saw his chance. This was his chance to escape from this place. He immediately turned to the others and reported that he had figured out everything in this theft task. Jiang Weng put on his glasses and asked the others to ponder the theft case a little differently. When the others didn't understand what he was talking about, he decided to explain. He reminded them that no matter what method the thief used, the thief had clearly prepared for it. Therefore, the all-glowing Jiang Weng asks to look for where the thief might have taken it all to. If they can find the place, it will definitely help them. Leia was all glowing. After hearing the information from the guy, she even praised him. Xu Jai was also happy that finally a friend had suggested something sensible. The captain said that he had also thought of starting the investigation with a motive, but it's quite a time-consuming task. Jiang Weng asks the captain not to worry about anything, because with the help of their abilities, their team will succeed. Leia is already all excited to enter the battle. Xu Jie is also ready to do his best. Looking at the trio standing in front of him, the captain sighed and decided that this was really the only way out in the current situation. Thinking about where the first place the organs could have been sold to, there's only one place that comes to the captain's mind. And that place is called the black market. Jiang Weng is happy to hear the news because everything worked out and he has a chance to escape. Meanwhile, some guy who had been working since he was a little kid reported that he was from Luguan restaurant and had come to pick up a fresh batch of goods. He required everything to be delivered to the restaurant before 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He needed 100 kilograms of mussels, 100 kilograms of shrimp, 150 kilograms of clams, and 25 kilograms of fish. Suddenly, the guy was thrown the fish and told that it was for his boss. The guy immediately understood everything. At the same moment, the lad collided with the captain, whereupon he fell painfully on the wooden pier. The captain asked the guy to be more careful. Suddenly, everyone noticed what fell from the guy's hands. This fish was obviously not of the best quality. The guy was immediately frightened, grabbed the fish with a quick movement, and rushed to run away. Xu Jai even tried to stop the guy. However, the captain asked him not to worry, as it was just a slightly infected fish. The captain brought all 3 of them to Shubang Wharf. It was quite a popular place. This place was called the Black Market. As long as it was profitable, it was difficult to abolish the illegal trade. And because of the location, it's even harder to control the place. So officials turn a blind eye to everything, tacitly accepting the existence of the place as long as it doesn't cause much trouble. After listening to all this, Jiang Weng once again turns his attention to the fleeing guy with the fish. The captain reminds him that they don't have much time, so they need to find the thief who stole the monster's organs. The captain concluded that if the thief wanted to sell the stolen goods, he would definitely do it in this place. Any stall, restaurant, or fishing boat could be a haven for thieves, so the captain tells the trio to look around themselves. Shuji is surprised that they won't do the job altogether. Eventually, the captain informs them that he has better things to do. He tells them that if they find anything suspicious, they should report it to him. He even wishes the others good luck. And after that, the captain leaves them. Meanwhile, the captain did not go to rest. He went to one place. When he entered the establishment, everyone there was having fun. However, as soon as the captain opened the door, all the men's eyes immediately went to the captain. The captain is glad that everyone turned out today. He even declares that no one will be able to escape today. However, as it turned out, this was a premature opinion, for the captain had come to this place to rest. Taking off his jacket, the captain declares that he will get rich today. Another man even called him a jerk. The captain, however, informed everyone that no one would go home today unless they were drunk. He even tells the boss to bring in a dozen mugs of beer. Everyone in the bar was overjoyed. After a moment, the captain himself was happily pouring beer from the bottle into his mouth. At the same time, Shujai only noticed that the captain had really left them alone. He even seemed unreliable to Shujie. Jiang Weng, on the contrary, thinks that the captain did the right thing. After all, they only have 7 days to find a needle in a haystack. Therefore, the best option is to split up and act. Jiang Weng decided to go ahead and contact them later. Leia, at this moment feeling free, was already running away from them in the opposite direction. Shujai was at a loss, as he didn't know what to do in such a situation. In the back of his mind, Jiang Weng apologized to the guys, as he would have to act on his own. He decided to bring everyone here not to investigate, but to regain his freedom. Walking through the black market, he notices that there is a very diverse crowd in this place, and the chance that he will find the right person for him is quite high. He needed someone to take the collar off of him. He only had 7 days, so he didn't want to waste a minute. From the moment he entered the black market, there were many strangers' eyes on him. Finally, after a while, Jiang Weng reached one building in the black market. He thought that this was the starting point of his search. At the entrance to the establishment, the guy was greeted with a smile by an employee. Meanwhile, night had fallen and the captain still continued to drink, not wanting to go anywhere. The next morning, Leia and Shuji still also went in search of the stolen organs. After finding a place to sleep for the night, Leia slept in the bed while Shuji sat outside the door. The third day came. The morning came quickly and the black market was fully operational again. Jiang Weng let out a frustrated sigh. It was more difficult than he had anticipated. In 3 days, he still hadn't managed to accomplish anything. He had already noticed that this restaurant was obviously not that simple, but he still hadn't been able to find out anything. There was too little time for such a task. Suddenly, the employee who was only talking to the guy who came in ran to his boss. The boss's smile could not be hidden after his words. The boss didn't hesitate to run to see what his subordinates had done. The subordinates were all smiles when the boss ran out to meet them. He asked if they had succeeded. One of the subordinates said that they had succeeded. He even praised the boss because he was incredibly talented and that his method had worked. The other subordinate agreed with this statement. They gathered the infected creatures together, then starved them, and then forced them to fight each other. One of the infected became incredibly ferocious through this method. As soon as they opened the container, a monstrous monster emerged. This monster looked like a chimera, as if a fish had been combined with an arthropod. At the same time, the fish had giant fangs. Level, weak beast. The boss asked if anyone had discovered their plan, and the subordinate replied that it was simply impossible. The boss is incredibly happy to hear the news. He is glad because the more ferocious the monster, the more expensive it can be sold. Even for such a monster, he was expecting to get 100,000. Meanwhile, Jiang Weng was sitting on the roof with his hood over his head like a Spider-Man. He knew that there was something going on in this place, but he didn't think it would be this much fun. Suddenly, the monster became enraged and pushed his subordinates away. The monster was about to escape, however. The boss told his subordinates not to let the monster escape. At the same moment, right in front of the monster, Jiang Weng jumped off the roof. The boss immediately told the guy to stop the monster. Jiang Weng is upset. He doesn't understand why people want to possess what they are not supposed to. He reminds him that it's the boss's monster, so he and his subordinates should help Jiang Weng. The monster still keeps running at the guy, so he has no choice. Jiang Weng firmly grabs the wooden beam like a baseball bat and swings like he's trying to hit a home run. The boss practically has tears in his eyes as the defeated monster falls right in front of him. The boss is incredibly upset because now he won't get his 100,000. Frustrated and furious, the boss wonders who the guy in front of him is. Jiang Weng is practically sickened by the stench that comes from the monster. Since the boss asks who he is, Jiang Weng informs him that he is the one who knows their secret. The boss and his subordinates immediately stared at the collar around Jiang Weng's neck that he had specifically shown them. Seeing the collar on the guy, they were immediately wary because he is infected. Jiang Weng admits that the boss is not mistaken and that he is the infected one. The guy immediately informs the boss not to worry. Jiang Weng didn't have any thoughts of reporting them, and he doesn't realize if there's any point at all. Then the boss asks what the stranger wants from him. Jiang Weng says that he came to ask some questions, and he hopes to get an answer to them. And if the answers are different from what he knows, It will make for an uncomfortable situation. The boss immediately realized that it sounded like a threat, so he became even more wary. Jiang Weng asked his first question. How long had the boss been working in this field? The boss said that he inherited the restaurant about 7 years ago. Jiang Weng immediately noticed that in 7 years, the boss must have acquired connections. Even more wary, the boss informed that he had some connections. Then Jiang Weng asked the third question. Was there anyone who could remove the collar from him? The boss was incredibly shocked when he heard what the guy standing in front of him said. Jiang Weng once again points out that the boss didn't hear it and that he is looking for someone to take the collar off him. The guy notices that this is also beneficial to the boss. After all, what the boss is doing is not normal. If the boss will help him, he will help the boss. The boss immediately informs him that he has a man who can remove the collar. He offers to take the guy to him. Jiang Weng likes people with business acumen. However, the boss shows his subordinates a thumbs up, and they somehow smile grimly. I wonder if they're going to harvest the guy's organs. I've seen something like this before. Meanwhile, Shujai notices that their friend has been gone for days. Leia is also upset that her dog is missing. The captain was also nowhere to be seen. Shuji only hoped that nothing bad had happened in the meantime. The boss led the guy to have his collar removed. Jiang Weng inquired whether they had a long way to go. Then the boss admits that removing the collar privately is a serious offense. Therefore, it is logical that one should hide well if one is engaged in such a thing. The boss informs him that they are almost there. The boss is already happily noticing the guy calmly walking into his ambush. All the subordinates in the neighborhood had already prepared. They were just waiting for the signal to start. One of the subordinates notices that the guy doesn't look very smart. Another subordinate doesn't think the guy might be able to fight back. The third subordinate was glad because the infected guy would be worth over 100,000. They all rejoiced because this is what happens when you get in their way. After that, the operation to capture the guy began, and all the subordinates jumped out of their hiding places. But there was no one in the alley, neither the guy nor the boss. Everyone had seen them going to that place, but at the moment, there was no them in that place. Meanwhile, in the neighboring alleyway, Jiang Weng clamped his hand over the boss's mouth. The subordinates were trying to find the boss and the infected. They decided to search all around. Jiang Weng ordered the boss to keep quiet. He recalls that he was sincere with the boss and the boss thought of killing him. He notices that all these people smell strongly of fish, so he immediately realized what was waiting for him next. The boss is almost crying as he realizes that his life is at stake. Jiang Weng asks the boss one last time if he has someone to help him. Since the boss refuses to talk, the guy reminds him that he has many ways to torment the boss. He grabs the boss's finger and notes that the boss seems to take poor care of his hands. It seems to the guy that the boss has so many burrs on his hands. He even offers to help the boss and tear them off one by one. The boss's eyes even started to bulge. After that, the guy didn't just talk, but did what he said he would do. The boss even cried from this pain. Jiang Weng doesn't understand why the boss doesn't tell him. He even calls the boss a stubborn talker. The boss couldn't stop his tears. It was only at this moment that Jiang Weng noticed that he had been gagging the boss all this time. He even apologized to the boss. He asks that when he let go of the boss's mouth, then he wouldn't think of screaming, because the boss hasn't seen all that the guy is capable of yet. As soon as he let go of the boss's mouth, the all-crying boss sat down on the ground and as if to let out a breath. Still crying, the boss immediately said that there was a place called Xiaguang. There was a person there who could help the guy remove the collar. Only the people living there would dare to do such a job. Jiang Weng inquired if the boss was cheating him this time. The boss immediately squeals with fear that he is not cheating him. The guy reminds the boss that if he finds out that the boss cheated him, the boss won't get off that easy this time. In the same instant, the guy's face turns into a dog face. He promised that if the boss had cheated him, he would arrange for the boss to have nothing to get burrs on. The boss was incredibly frightened by what he heard. The same boss who thought that he could do whatever he wanted and that no one would ever do such a thing to him. After saying those words, Jiang Weng immediately left the boss. And at the same moment, the subordinates arrived at the scene of their boss's humiliation. They kept wondering where the jerk who was next to the boss was. The guy was glad that he was finally able to find the information. The city in question was about 100 kilometers from the black market. He had 2 days left for everything. He's even trying to think positive that he'll definitely succeed in getting the collar off this time. Suddenly, in an alley, Jiang Weng bumps into a guy. and the guy's smell seemed familiar to him. This guy talking on the phone had the smell of a lab where monster organs were missing. The man informed his interlocutor that the goods were ready, and he demands that everything be as agreed, not a penny less in money or weapons, and that he was on his way. Jiang Weng, meanwhile, was hiding around the corner. The man smelled of formalin from the lab, even though the smell was faint, but it was definitely him. Jiang Weng even wondered if this was the thief they were looking for. Even if he is not a thief, he is definitely related to this case. The guy realizes that this encounter with a potential thief is too bad timing. If he reports the potential thief, it will ruin his plans. The captain, in the meantime, continued to party at the bar and not engage in his assignment. He even sings songs. Suddenly, someone called his phone and the all-cheerful captain answered the call. It was Jiang Weng, who still decided to report that the target had been located. He had found the kidnapper. The captain seemed to sober up from the information he heard and was no longer so drunk. Jiang Weng said that he was currently watching the potential thief. The potential thief was on his way to his city. Jiang Weng then reported that the suspect is a man about 175 centimeters tall, appears to be 27-28 years old, wearing a red and white twist, wearing a gold chain, has a tattoo on his head, no eyebrows. Now the suspect was about to board the dark red ship at the West Pier, so Jiang Weng asks the captain to hurry. Jiang Weng believes that he has done even more than what was required of him. After that, he is going to head to Xiaguang. At this time, the guy himself, someone was watching, hidden in the shadows, and the guy didn't even notice it. Meanwhile, the suspected thief had already negotiated with the captain of the ship. After their conversation, he easily jumped onto the ship. The captain and the others watched from hiding. Shujai wondered where the captain had been all this time and why he smelled so stinky. The captain, however, calls him an idiot and that he doesn't realize it's all a disguise necessary for the investigation. He even tells them to watch themselves first. Looking at the ship, he thinks that Jiang Weng must have talked about this ship. The ship had a completely ordinary number, and the captain was curious if it was related to this case. Shujai wondered where their friend was, and did he really tell the captain about everything but didn't show up himself? Unfortunately for them, the guy didn't respond to their messages. Leia is worried too, because the dog has been gone for days. Shujai assumes that the guy decided to investigate on his own. Leia, on the other hand, is worried that the guy might have been grabbed by those freaks. The captain thinks that if he got it right, he's got a big fish on the hook. He's even thinking about getting a promotion, and once he's on the thief's trail, he doesn't need the infected anymore. So he decides to send them back today. He is glad that the enemy blundered, and he managed to remain undetected by the enemy. He believes that he should follow the plan, and then everything will definitely work out. However, he did not consider other variables in his plan, for to his surprise and incredible shock, Leia and Shujie had walked out onto the dock directly to the ship while the captain was contemplating his promotion. The crew from the ship were suspicious of the arriving strangers. Shujai reports that they were investigating a case and needed to inspect the ships in this port. It was standard procedure, so he hoped for cooperation from the ship. Leia was also trying to insist on cooperation. The captain stared at the arriving strangers, and then, while another member of the ship's crew turned around and walked away, he demanded a warrant. Shuji was surprised when he heard about the warrant, because the others had agreed without a warrant. Leia was starting to get annoyed by this situation. Shujai read that maybe their captain had a warrant. The potential thief, meanwhile, was observing the situation through the ship's window. Shujai immediately tried to summon the captain to bring the warrant. The captain grabbed his head because he would definitely not get a promotion now. He called them idiots and asked them to stay out of it. The thief glanced at the captain, who had come out of hiding. He immediately informed his subordinate that these strangers were not who they said they were. The ship's captain insisted that without a warrant, they had no right to enter the ship. However, the guys bent their line that they were under investigation and they were obliged to cooperate. Shuji advised him not to complicate things and called out to the captain again. However, the captain of the ship had already gone to threaten that Shuji would become fish food. At this moment, the less patient Leia immediately kicked the ship captain in the face. The girl orders the ship captain to bring a bloodhound. Shujai notices how confident Leia is that they will definitely succeed. The ship captain pretends not to understand which bloodhound they are talking about. Leia tells him to move and do as she asks if he cares about his life. The would-be thief realizes that the strangers have figured something out, and he commands that they not be allowed to leave. At the same instant, people rushed out from everywhere and surrounded Ling Bo and his subordinate infected. The captain of the ship immediately stood up, grabbed his weapon, and reported that the strangers had messed with the wrong people. He started firing, and a large number of bubbles were sent towards Leia and Shujie. The guys didn't realize what it was. It wasn't until the captain realized everything, he immediately yelled that it was a secret weapon and urged the guys to dodge. The noise from the battle came to Jiang Wen's ears. He is even surprised that the sounds of battle from the ship even reach this place. Running away, the guy is comforted that the girl and the others will be okay. He knows that the others consider him their friend, but he doesn't want any trouble. He even apologizes to the others and says goodbye to them as friends. However, he himself runs out at exactly the wrong place and at the wrong time, as he encounters a large number of monsters. Shujai shields his hand from the bubbles, and as soon as the bubble touches his hand, and as soon as the bubble explodes, the captain declares that the weapon is made from the bones of a monster. The bubbles that come out of their weapons explode with a 60% probability. Therefore, the captain advises the boys to run away. However, Leia and Shujai find themselves surrounded by the bubbles. Leia notices that the guy never came back and that they must find him. Jiang Weng himself, in the meantime, encountered monsters. They were infected monsters, and he found himself somehow near them and didn't understand how it happened. Seeing the frightening aura emanating from these infected, Jiang Weng thought that he would definitely not live. However, all the monsters suddenly kneeled before him and informed him that they had finally met their great lord again. Looking at the monsters that kneeled before him, he didn't understand which great lord they were talking about. However, almost immediately, he came to the conclusion that they must be talking about the monster inside him, and that he was indeed a lord to them. It seems that this body is indeed some sort of monster leader. The monster with hair like vines asked if there was any progress on the Lord's mission. The guy absolutely didn't understand what mission it was talking about. He tried to go inside his soul to meet the monster inside him. Inside, he called out to the monster and felt that they should help each other and exchange information. Jiang Weng was even embarrassed. He was annoyed that the monster didn't answer his question in any way. He felt that next time he should make an agreement with the monster in advance. Looking at the monsters, Jiang Weng couldn't help but think about what would happen if he said that he was no longer their leader. He felt that he shouldn't do such a stupid thing, for he would be torn apart by the monsters right on the spot. The green monster girl was full of anger. In the end, Jiang Weng decided that he shouldn't show his weakness and pull himself together. He clucked his tongue. Immediately, the boar-like monster became very frightened. He noticed that the Lord was angry. The boar asked the captain to watch his tone, and so the third captain appeared. The boar reminds them that their Lord is on S level. They have been in hiding for 6 months now, and people have become much more vigilant and are taking precautions. Their master, on the other hand, has agreed to do the kind of dirty work they can't help him with. So all they have to do is trust. Jiang Weng was glad that the boar had spoken. This boar even seemed somehow familiar to him. After that, the boar said that he believed that the master would find the 0 infected. Jiang Weng was shocked when he heard that the idea was to find the 0 infected. The captain asks the boar to shut up, for she herself knows that the task of the master is not that easy. However, from the captain's observations, she believes that the master has other plans. Jiang Weng's plans were to remove the collar and escape. The guy already thought that this shrewd person had exposed him. The boar came to his rescue, saying that it was simply impossible and that surely the master had just changed his plan of action, as he couldn't abandon it. The captain told the boar to shut up. Angrily staring at the monster captain, Jiang Weng declared that the captain dared to teach him what to do and how to do it. The monster captain experienced awe and fear from that look and words. She immediately apologized to the master and declared that she had crossed the boundary. Meanwhile, in his thoughts, Jiang Weng was angry with himself. All this time, the monsters had been following him while he was in the black market, and he didn't even realize it. He complained that he lacked experience. However, he told himself to calm down because he needed to analyze the situation. According to the boar, he is a spy who was sent to find 0 infected. These monsters were his subordinates. They were continuously following him, so even if he took off the collar, he wouldn't be able to escape. These monsters would definitely not let him escape, and he wouldn't be able to defeat all these monsters because that monster inside him was still too weak. The guy had no idea what he should do in this situation. He needed to think of a way to get rid of the monsters. Meanwhile, Shujai was still being attacked with the bubbles released from the bone weapon. Leia was also fighting against the attackers. She was incredibly pissed off by all those bubbles. She declared that she would kill anyone who touched this guy. At the same instant, the suspected thief appeared behind her back. He immediately recognized the girl and advised her to do nothing. If she did anything at all, her friends would find out all the information about her. When Leia was attacked by multiple bubbles and stopped doing anything, the captain yelled at her. The captain realized that he shouldn't care and that he needed to escape from this place as quickly as possible. However, the captain was unable to escape as he was surrounded on all sides by the ship's crew members. He looked at his subordinates, and the situation around the situation was very bad. Leia had stopped doing anything, and Shujai was already exhausted and could no longer fight fully. At this moment, Jiang Wang decided that he needed to distract all these monsters. He asks them if they heard the noise. The captain of the monsters declares that they have heard and that the sound is coming from a ship. The boar immediately understands everything. The Lord wanted to say that this boat is not that simple, and that the fishermen are not simple. That's why the master has been watching them all this time. So the Lord thinks they have something to do with the case. And maybe they can find out about the 0 infected. The Lord just pretended to want to escape, but it was all a disguise so he could get close to them himself later. The boar notices that he expected nothing else from their great Lord. The arms of the monsters surged upwards as they praised their great Lord. Jiang Wang is glad that the boar has said all this. He notices that the boar is quite savvy, so he orders all the monsters to destroy the ship and the fishermen. The monster captain understood and accepted her great lord's order. Shuji, meanwhile, was receiving a slap in the face from the ship captain. Leia raised her hands and declared that they were surrendering, and only Ling Bo still didn't understand how he got into this situation. The would-be thief, meanwhile, was about to end all this squabbling. He took out a weapon, the exploding bone, enhanced version. This weapon was quite popular in the neighborhood. The official number is YC0467. The weapon uses part of the spine to make the weapon. It has an 80% chance of detonating, and the explosive power is equivalent to a Class A bomb. The potential thief decided to start with Shujai and had already taken aim at the guy. However, suddenly, the water behind him began to bubble suspiciously. In an instant, the ship was entangled with the plant-like vines, and the ship went down. The potential thief and the rest of the crew stood and just watched the ship go down. Captain Ling, Leia, and Shujie didn't realize what was happening around them either. Finally, the ship easily went underwater with a sudden movement, flooding the entire dock with water. The ship's crew panicked from side to side and then started to run away because now they noticed that it was a monster. It was the captain of the monsters. Number YC186. Codename Flower Spirit. Skill Plant Control. Level Ghostly. The ship's crew abandoned running away from this place. However, the monsters were already waiting for them on the land on the other side. The boar, as soon as it saw all those fishermen running straight towards them, told the monsters to kill them. The monsters started grabbing one fisherman after another. The fisherman only screamed pitifully and asked to report the monsters' invasion to the city. Some of the fishermen were mercilessly eaten by the monsters. Leia and Shujai were shocked by what they saw as they watched the monsters massacre the fishermen. Jiang Wang ran up to them and shouted that he didn't understand why they were still standing here. He told them to run away. Leia was happy to finally see the dog. Shujai was also happy that his friend managed to get out and that he was alive. As they ran away, Shujai wondered where the monsters came from. Jiang Wang had absolutely no idea what kind of monsters they were or where they came from. Therefore, he recommended everyone to run away, and Shujai asked where their captain was, and at the same moment, Captain Ling was hit with the butt of his gun by the captain of the ship. The ship captain finally found the captain. After all, the captain is a simple man, so he's bound to be killed by bubbles. However, Shujai suddenly stood up in defense of the captain and protected the drunkard from the bubbles. The captain of the ship only called him a jerk. He notices that the guy is already injured and still trying to be a hero. His blood even got on the ship captain. Shuji states that he should have just resolved the matter in a civilized manner. He doesn't understand why he had to go that far. He then declares with all the pathos that all those who opposed him will inevitably be punished. His blood is the judgment of the ship's captain. The man even laughed at the guy's words and whether the guy is talking to himself. After that, he decided that he should end it all. At the same moment, the captain of the ship was struck by lightning, although there was no attack from anywhere. The man didn't understand where this electricity came from, and Zhu Jie only reminded him that the more arrogant his opponent was, the more severe the punishment. Shuji ionized the blood. Degree of contamination, C-. When 7764's blood lands on another creature's body, special properties are activated, going into standby mode. When 7764 says snap, the blood strikes the target with a current charge. The intensity of the shock is related to the target's emotions at that moment. The stronger the emotion, the greater the intensity. Without a special command, the blood automatically sends a weak current discharge after 60 seconds. Shujai asks if Captain Ling is okay, and he happily informs her that he is fine. Of course he is, he almost died just now. I wonder how Jiang Weng will explain why the monsters came to the pier and didn't touch any of them, only the ship and the fishermen. And also, how will he explain to the monsters what they were looking for on the ship, since the monsters dared to show themselves in front of the humans? And that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you would like to see a sequel, please like, subscribe to the channel, and leave your wishes in the comments. You can also subscribe to Telegram to know about new videos. Bye everybody.